Today and this month, we do celebrate Black History, an important time to reflect specifically on the African Americans who have contributed to our country over the years and all those key moments in history that define us. Before I get going, I'd be remiss. I want to recognize our county controller who is here. Susan Rizzo is here to join us, and I wanted to make sure to acknowledge her and for all the others in attendance. Every year there's an opportunity to discuss important parts of Black history and also to learn more. Black culture and diversity are essential parts of Albany County and absolutely should be celebrated. As a county, it's important to look at our accomplishments, but also to acknowledge that we can do more moving forward. The best way we can learn about Black history and grow is by talking to one another. That's why we're here today hosting a panel discussion that focuses on challenges and successes in different areas. Those areas include education, health, business, community, and politics. It's a wide range of ideas, but as the county executive has said, it's important to recognize how these topics intersect and impact people's lives. As a county, we continue to work hard to support the African American community with those goals in mind. We've been hard at work over the last several years with the county executive's equity agenda to address racial inequities, and now that includes an even greater focus on data analytics. Having a team that provides up-to-date data will work to improve equity and effectiveness in the county's programs and services, ensuring our minority communities are getting their fair share as well. We've done a lot of good over these last few years with the equity agenda, but we know that and acknowledge that there's more to be done. And because of that, we wanted to bring in some local experts with us this morning who are closely involved in the community as part of the Black History Month celebration and will further guide us in our efforts. But before we start our discussion, the county executive has issued a proclamation for February to celebrate Black History Month. Without reading the entire proclamation to you, we're absolutely proud to present this here in celebration of Black history and demonstrate the county executive and Albany County's continued appreciation for it. Now, our facilitator for today's panel is Jalal Aldin Cancer. He's going to introduce our distinguished guest this morning and for active participation and discussion. And I hope all of you can stick around and learn a thing or two like I myself will. So Jalal, with that being said, turn it over to you.
Thank you all for being here with us today for this important discussion. Today we are celebrating Black History Month with a discussion about challenges and successes we've had in education, health, business, our communities, and politics. We have the privilege of hearing from Richard Harris, founder of 100 Black Men of Albany, Deborah Brown Johnson, president of Albany NAACP, and Michael Epperson, placement and career services developer at Pathstone. So without further ado, I'd like to start with a few questions for Deborah, then we'll go over to Michael, and then Richard Harris will wrap things up. Deborah, what are some of the barriers that you've been able to identify with your organization, whether regarding employment or services for the community, Black and brown people, and what are you doing to show support and guidance for the community?
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I think for the NAACP, one of the critical issues for us is that we believe information is power. That when you have the information available to you, to understand whatever it is means, then hopefully you can access that service, you can participate in that program, you can be engaged and involved and move forward. And that's one of the critical issues for us, is information, is the net being cast wide enough for people in the community to know what is out there for them, what they can be involved in, and then secondary, can they access it? And so for the NAACP, we look at a couple of things, and if I could just highlight two major things that we're engaged in. One is voter information and voter registration. We understand that being able to exercise the right to vote, which is a right for everyone, And casting that vote is significant in changing the community and changing the quality of life, the services that one will receive in their community. And a lot of times the idea of voting, it's like the idea may be, why should I do it? What does it matter? What will it do? And it does a lot. And so we've engaged in registering individuals, providing information. One of the things our Civic Engagement Committee has done is develop door knockers that we had put out over the last couple of elections, going into the community, encouraging people to register and then vote. Because it's not just enough to be registered. And it's not just enough to vote once or to vote only in the major election for the president, because politics is local. We're not going to tell you who to vote. No one should tell you who to vote for, but they should provide the information for the individuals to determine who they believe best represents their needs, best represents their community needs, who has been accountable if it's an existing individual who wants to run again for a position. And the understanding that we need to hold people accountable. What they said they were going to do, did they do it? What they're saying is important. Is it important to you? Does that represent your area? So we've been encouraging individuals to vote. The other area that we have looked at is in terms of employment and employment opportunities. If I can hold there 1 second. Going back to another activity that we're engaged in related to community engagement. After I leave here, I'm going up to Albany High, and this is our second year in a project with the social studies teachers and P3, a community program, and civic engagement, what that looks like to you, and working with high school students as they think about what is community involvement and how does it show up. We've engaged a number of community organizations, representatives to come in and talk to them about what community involvement is, how they started their program and organizations, and working with the teachers. It is part of the social studies curriculum with the students. So again, starting with a younger group who may not yet be ready to vote or able to vote, but understanding what that means overall and changing the condition of not only their lives, but the lives within their community. Another project that we are working on is with the New York State Department of Civil Service. I retired after 38 years in civil service with the New York State Education Department. I know for a number of people, the idea of going into state government, what does that look like? Do I have to take a test? Is everything about a test? And what happens if I don't pass a test? Is that the only way I can get in? Working with New York State Civil Service, we are looking to identify and carry out communication on how someone can engage in civil service employment and the variety of ways to do that. Again, to cast that net wide enough to reach individuals in the community, to talk about opportunities that may be of an interest to them. Again, information. And with information, now you can be informed and decide what path works for you. And so we have also, again, engaged not only the Department of Civil Service, working with them, but connecting them with community-based programs that work with individuals on the ground level to talk about those opportunities and how we can assist them in identifying what job opportunities are available, career opportunities, and then again, identifying what pathways may be available to them.
Thank you, Deborah. Another question, what role does politics play in the struggles that the brown and black community face? And how does Albany NAACP help educate and advocate for better policies?
Politics plays a great role. That's where decisions are made about the policy, the procedure, who is appointed to a position, what is their stance on a particular issue. It goes from the dog catcher, if you got a dog, to the police chief. And so it is important in terms of, again, I go back to that word information and communication with the community, the power that is being handed to whoever is elected. And if you're not engaged, then you have made a decision. Although you may not have voted, you have said that those who are going to vote, it's okay for you to make the decision for me. And that should not be acceptable to anyone. All of us should be engaged. And if, one of the things we communicate, the community, if the person you voted for didn't win, It doesn't mean that all is lost. It doesn't mean that the person who did win can go off and do whatever they want to do. They are still supposed to represent your needs, and this is where we go into making and holding people accountable. So decisions are made at all levels. It's not just the presidential level with the president and the Congress. It is also local with your mayor, with your council person, with your ward leader. And it's important that we as a community have conversations, that we submit our requests and concerns, and we talk about the quality of life for all. Not just a segment of the population, not just those who may be donors, financial. It is, I am a citizen here, and so my needs need to be addressed as you're talking about the issues that are impacting the community. And so what we encourage and what we move forward in terms of voter registration and voter information is informing the community that there is power there, that they do have power to have those who hold positions to address their needs and to engage their needs as they go forward.
Thank you for sharing. So we'll move on to Michael now. Michael, what are some of the programs and services that Pat Stone offers to help provide access to education and health opportunities throughout the community?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Mike Epperson. I am from Pat Stone Corporation. On your sheet, you might see me as the placement career service developer, but within the last week, I have moved up to regional administrator. So you could give me a round of applause for that. You could write that up. Just a short history on Pat Stone is that Pat Stone has been around since 1969. But we just opened up our first office in this area last February 26th, I want to say, so we're almost coming up on the 1-year anniversary. So just a little bit about Pat Stone and what we do. Pat Stone Corporation is a young adult reentry program where we work with young adults between the ages of 18 to 24. And we work with these young adults who have any type of judicial history, whether they got locked up today in school for offense or they're locked up in Albany County Jail right now. We'll meet them wherever they at. The program that we do with our grant money in conjunction with Hudson Valley, the workforce development, we are able to offer these young adults free vocational trainings, whether it's electrical wiring, shielded metal welding arc. We even have a drone class where they get to fly a drone for a day and get certified for all of these courses. The thing that makes this grant and this company great, in my opinion, is that everything that we do for these young adults is free of charge. So we have classes where we say a shielded metal welding arc. You gotta excuse me. It's a long sentence. But this course could cost, let's say, $3,500 for tuition. We also have to get them the electrical wiring set and the tools that they need. We provide everything, safety boots, safety goggles, whatever they need to be successful. Also with our program, we also offer these videos that we call PX2. And these PX2's videos is a way how we teach them to change they can't into they can't. Always tell them when you first start to watch these videos, it seems kind of corny. You have this old guy talking to these young adults and it seems kind of funny, but when you actually watch the videos, you can get a lot into it. And with these videos, we learn how we can set up a 5-year plan, things that these kids would never think of. And the final part of our program is that we offer job readiness services because at the end of the day, we want these kids to be successful in the workforce development. So if you do get a degree for cybersecurity, we want that to transfer over until you get an employment. And so far, the program has been super successful with the young adults we have been receiving.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, how does Pat Stone identify the individuals that are going to participate in the programs, and how do you provide support throughout their time, whether it's in the courses of study or finding employment?
Absolutely. So Like I said, we have the 3 programs, which is the vocational trainings, the PX2, and the job readiness services. But a lot of what this job contains a lot of empathy. So it goes beyond the measures of what we do between a 9 to 5. I always say that this is a 40-hour-a-week job, a 9 to 5. But you have young adults that'll reach out to you at 7:30 and will just call you about their personal reasons, what they got going on in relationships, or whatever they got going on in their personal lives. So I always say that if I wasn't getting paid for this job, I would probably do it for free, because the gratification that I receive from doing this line of work is when these young adults are successful. When I meet them at Albany County Jail and I register them, and they say as soon as they get out, they're going to reach out and take advantage of this program. And when they actually do that, it's super successful. It's a gratifying feeling. The way how we reach out to this program, one thing that I learned is that working with the workforce development, there's a lot of other programs out in this region that pretty much offers the same things that we offer. Through the workforce development, I think that one little thing that separates us is that we do work with these young adults who have major felonies. And, we pretty much have to put the groundwork in. Like I said, we've been around for almost a year, but maybe like the first 8 months was just letting this region know who we are, what we do. I always say that this program sounds too good to be true. Like, how could everything be for free? But once you actually take advantage of it and we get the young adults that we need, that's what makes it even better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll move over to Richard now. Richard, what are some of the roadblocks that you and your organization have faced, whether it be financially, lack of resources or support, and what are some of the things that you've actions you've taken to address these challenges?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I appreciate the fact that we're here celebrating Black History Month, which is American history, as we know. We talk about Black history, but you have to put it in the context of American history. African Americans have made great contributions to this country for many, many years, and yet we're still facing a number of challenges, which I will address later. But to deal with your question, is one of the things that we came together, we formed the organization in 1993. So this is our 30th anniversary, so I think we can, we're celebrating it this year. And we look forward to continuing the work that we do. But you talk about the things that we're concerned about. There's resources, bringing resources to our community. You look at the disparity in resources, and right away our organization said there are certain things we have to do. And to address the resource gap, we said that what we wanted to do is partner with business, government, and community, bringing them together. So in the early 90s, we looked around and we said, African American community and the minority community, they are not on the information superhighway. So what does that mean? In other words, not computer literate. But how do you become computer literate? So organization, we wrote a proposal and received a grant, probably 1995, for $350,000 roughly. And why did we get this grant? Well, we wanted to bring connectivity into Albany, Schenectady, and Troy in the Capital District. And that connectivity would allow us to give computers to community organizations and schools and churches where folks could learn how to use computers. Well, our focus was on our youth. We said we want to work with the youth. Turned out that we were somewhat wrong. While we focused on our youth, most of our classes we had parents of the children and grandparents of the children, and that we reached out to. But we found 14 locations where we put computers in Albany, Schenectady, and Troy. And as I mentioned, some of them were churches and community organizations like Arbor Hill Community Center and a number of the churches in the area. And why did we do that? We put them in those areas because we looked at them as comfort zones, places where our community are used to going to and they feel comfortable. And it worked out very well. We trained hundreds of people. We put free new computers, state-of-the-art computers. Each location got a dozen computers. And so the program was successful, so successful that we had a technology center on Clinton Avenue. And some of you may have been there for the training and then other programs. So that was just one of the obstacles that we've seen, is the lack of resources. But then there's another major problem that we have. It's in this capital region and throughout the country, is we talk about diversity, equity, etc., but you just can't talk it. You have to walk it. And to get there, one of the most important things I see when you're dealing with, I'm talking about people that want to be a part of diversifying our community and bringing equity to the minority community, is you have to step outside of the box. Outside the box. We had a meeting with the NAACP and civil service a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago. And civil service, well, you know, everybody can take civil service exams and everything's supposed to be equal, et cetera. But you have to step outside the box. You can't say we use the old requirements and expect to get new and better results. You have to change. So many of the requirements in jobs and civil service, et cetera, they put up barriers to minorities. Well, let me give you an example. Okay, let's say we want more minorities in the fire department, right? And then you have to realize that one of the requirements in many of the local fire departments is you have to be a paramedic. Well, a lot of folks don't even know much about the fire department, never mind knowing that you have to be a paramedic. And to be a paramedic, it costs. It costs money to get trained to be a paramedic, and time. And then, of course, you have to know about those kind of things. Right? So, as I say, the challenge we face is especially when you're dealing with businesses and government agencies that want to work with us, is they have to step outside the box sometimes. And that's one of the jobs we do as 100 Black Men, is we try and help them step out of the box.
And another question I have for you, how does your services and programs help those in the communities and organizations that you're providing these computers or services? How do you help those individuals involved find success? Are you guys monitoring, tracking, following up? How do you guys help in that regard?
Well, could you?
So the programs and services that you offer, how does 100 Black Men help individuals benefit from these programs?
Okay. Well, one of the things is through our relationships with our partners, we can help them find employment, and of course, we encourage them to get education, and we help them get to employment and make them aware of the different opportunities that they have educationally around. We have a relationship with Hudson Valley Community College, where we mentor the athletics students that are involved with sports and athletics. Our members who have been down that road, that many of them are traveling, we have a program where we mentor those youngsters, working with Hudson Valley Community College. And the follow-up to some of the students that we have, we dealt with over the years, well, we don't know where they are until sometimes they reach out to us. Or, for example, we've been, I was at Hudson Valley Community College working with the computer program. And the gentleman who was from the Boys and Girls Club, he was there working with us, and we're trying to see how we can outreach and get more youngsters involved with computers. Well, this young man, he introduced himself, and we talked for a while. And when they introduced me, he had a big smile on his face. He's smiling, right? So he says, well, I'm in charge of the Boys and Girls Club's technology program. And I was one of the students in your computer training program. So, that we felt great about that. And so you run into people that we've touched. Now, the gentleman talks about reentry. When we had the building over on Clinton Avenue, 100 Black Men's Technology Center, we mentored a reentry program. Yes, we had meetings with them, and our members worked with them, and we mentored them. And it was one of the things that we do is we do mentoring with not only the reentry program. We were involved with the Albany County juvenile program where they had pins in the program. And so we mentored youngsters in that program. That was through the family court. So those are the kind of things that we do. And we get a chance to help people. We have a website, and I should mention that because one of our members is here who handles that, and runs the website. So if you go to our website, and I'll make sure you get that information before we leave here if you want, is that you'll see that we will have job opportunities on our website. We have the announcements for civil service exams and employment opportunities. And so folks can go to the website, they can find out what jobs are available, and then we have, of course, our contact information so they can call us if they need further information.
Thank you, Richard. That's it for our questions, but we are going to talk about another topic. Richard's going to go into some more detail on some things that they're addressing with police brutality and some things 100 Black Men are doing out in the community to kind of combat this.
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that that's my lead into talking about what's going on with policing in America. And I'll let you know some of the things that we're doing in that area. Well, let's go back, okay? Not everybody knows this history, but I'm going to give you a quick one, Bill. When they talk about Rodney King, 25-year-old man, he was beaten severely. That was probably one of the, in recent years, that brought the attention to police brutality because it was aired and the video was all over the country and in fact all over the world. Okay? Rodney King, I'll mention the other few people that were involved with the policing issues, but Rodney King, he survived that beating. He passed away about three or 4 years ago. But everyone that had a TV, they saw in real time Rodney King being beaten, almost beaten to death, right? So those things happen, and some people say it's a bad apple. Well, we've looked at this issue. The members of our organization, we have committees that deal with it. We have members that have a background in criminal justice and policing. And we're not dealing with an individual thing. A lot of this is part of structural. So some structural, a lot of this behavioral things come from the history of policing. Folks don't realize that policing in America, it started basically dealing with slaves, right? You're shaking your head because you know, that's right. And absolutely, that's where it started, and that's what was been built on up until today. That's what we're talking about. So you look about even to talk about gun control issues. What do we have? About 75% of all Americans want gun control. Yeah. Where did that come from? Well, the folks wanted guns so that they can take care of the slaves, the runaway slaves, and then they can be their own militia and their own policing and do their policing. Well, this has to stop, right? This has to stop. So that's where we are. So let me bring you up to speed, and then I'll tell you some of the things that we're doing. Okay? Okay. So we talked about Rodney King, and then then you have Eric Gardner, Amadou Diallo. Let's touch on a few of them. Amadou Diallo. That was in 1999, I think.
43rd precinct. That's in the Bronx. It sounds
In the Bronx.
That's my precinct.
Okay, so you know, in the Bronx, right? Young man is 20, he was definitely 25 years old, Amadou Diallo. He's going home, to his home. People in civilian clothes, they accost him, a bunch of them. They come at him. It's late at night. It's probably about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And he's trying to get home, and he's trying to get away from them. He reaches for his keys. And guess what we do as a code in some people that are gangs, that call themselves policing, but they're gangs, okay? But in these gangs, some of the things they do, it's what we do. Gun. They used the word gun. And then 42 shots later, Amadou Diallo was dead. Okay? So these are the things that we all, as Americans, all of us, it's not just African Americans, we are appalled at this. And later we're going to talk about what we're going to do about it. Because we can be appalled forever. But what are we going to do about it, okay? All right. So then, I mentioned a number of men and African American men that have met this fate with our police, right? But it doesn't stop there. Breonna Taylor, a woman. I don't go into all the details, but a young lady, Breonna Taylor, she was gunned down in a house by police. A no knock. That was, they were dealing with no knock warrant. Okay. Then we got another person, a young man named Rice. Let me make sure I give you his name. Amir. Amir Rice, right? Was 12 years old. He had a toy gun, playing with a toy gun, like I know I did when I was a kid, right? Maybe some of you did, right? And I had no fear of getting shot in Brooklyn, and I don't think he had any concern. And a policeman jumps out of the car in Cleveland police, and shoots him. And within seconds, he shot him and he was dead. Okay? So between Michael Brown and other names that we can go down, it's a whole list, right? Now we have our latest killing, and some people say murder. But before I get to that, I wanted to leave it last, George Floyd, because we're going to talk about that. But so you've got Tyree Nichols, right? And this, everybody's seen in uniform what happened to him. And so why are we so alarmed at this? Because this happened, and about 2 years ago, folks said, what we're going to do is we're going to pass a George Floyd bill. Well, that's why I kind of was saving it for last, because that bill has not been passed. And that's something we all could do something about. We got to make sure our elected officials know that, no, that has to happen. And our organization will be reaching out to and wanting to meet with Senator Schumer and anybody else that you folks say that we should meet with. But that, as a minimum, that's what we're going to be doing. And like many of you, people have written letters, contacted their elected officials. But what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a country that the majority of Americans, right now, you people in this room, I can tell, you would like to see that bill passed. You got a majority of our elected officials that would like to see that happen. But then you got folks in the Senate, that they are committed to not passing that bill. Right? So now we got to get them to step out of whatever box they're in, because no more. It has to end. So we talk about it's in the Senate. It was passed in the House, and the president said that he was signing his State of the Union message. Right? We all heard that, right? But we have to do more. These folks have been getting away with this for years. They have a handful of senators, or whatever number of senators, that refuse to do anything to stop the brutality of African Americans. That's a fact. And I mentioned it's not only African American men, it's not only women, it's not only children, but it's all Americans. If you look at the statistics, there's something that folks like me sometimes forget. Police brutality does not stop when they're dealing with African Americans. And the number of killings last year, they had the most police killings last year, 2022, in the history of America. They have the most. And in those statistics, majority are people of color. But in the statistics, you have a number of folks that are not African Americans, right? What we call Caucasians, white, whatever, however we want to refer to each other. We call black, white, or the phrases we use when we refer to ourselves. But it's pervasive. It's all over the country, and it has to stop. And so one of the things that I'm looking to do, and through our organization, is we're reaching out not only to African Americans, and organizations and folks that are not of color, and we need to work together to bring about change. Now, there's a couple of things I want to share with folks because we kind of forget history. They talked about the chokehold with Eric Gardner, and I skipped over that intentionally, right? They said that was, Eric Gardner was 91 when that happened? Oh, no, it was in 2000. I have it here. 2000. Okay. They said that was the first chokehold victim in NYPD. Well, I kind of go back because I was right then with, they had a fellow who, in Brooklyn, in 1978, Arthur Miller, not the playwright, Arthur Miller, an African-American man who was a businessman in Brooklyn, a couple of blocks from where my organization had a headquarters. And he was out there and he was remodeling his business, and the police came there and they talked about debris being somewhere, whatever be the case. Next thing you know, he's in the squad car, and he died from a chokehold. And that was 1978. So in other words, Eric Gardner was not the first. And when we talk about training, there's another thing we got to put out on the floor. Because our organization, by the way, and many of the members are here, and at some point I would love to see some of them stand up. But here's what happens. We made recommendations on things that should be done. That's the recommendations, and that we feel police could look at. But training, you hear people talk about training. Well, that's really, really interesting. Training, they want to put more money into training. Well, let's look at the fellow that killed George Floyd. The main person the lead person that had his knee on his neck, he had an education in criminal justice, 2-year degree, and he was like a trainer, right? And then I don't want to mention all the cases because we all know them, like the woman who thought she was reaching for a policewoman, her taser, and she reached and accidentally shot the man and killed him because she pulled out her pistol instead of a taser. And she was taking some new person around and training him. So training is not the answer, right? It has to do with accountability. It has to do a lot of things that we have to do. But the bottom line is the start is the George Floyd bill. So with that, I just want to say thank you for listening, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all three of you for sharing.
I would like to see more people have taken and experienced the civil service exam and moving in to that as a career possibility. There are opportunities, and for young people who may be considering the different types of employment opportunities for them, I would like to say that there's a pathway to engage them, support them in taking the exam, understanding the exam, because there's changing dynamics in it. You just don't send someone in the room and figure it out yourself. We have to work with people. The other thing with the project we're working on is a small business, working with small business community and with other programs in the community. One of the things with COVID, as horrific as it has been, it has shown a light on disparities that we have been experiencing across the board, be it health, be it resources, be it how it impacted education, and even with technology that the families of color didn't have the same access to technology in order for their children to do work at home. But one of the things also with small businesses, what that looked like in the community and how that translated to the funding that was available, and did it trickle down to those small minority businesses? And no, it didn't. And it didn't trickle in the same way. And some of the criteria didn't fit the criteria on how we do business and how we set up business. So although there was money, quote unquote, made available, we couldn't access it. People couldn't access it in the same way. So it's really how do you make those adjustments on the policy, procedure side, And how do you work with community folks and being able to help people prepare and be able to engage in a system that will allow them to access programs and funding for them?
I would love to have more participants, plain and simple. And not only participants to register for our program, but to actually take advantage of the program, which is taking the vocational trainers, doing the PX2, and getting into the career of whatever they got trained in. Any help right now is possible. We appreciate this opportunity to speak in front of you. We work with probation officers, we work with other programs. Like yourself, you do mentorship. If you got some guys who have judicial, take my number, send them over, we'll take good care of them. And that would probably be best, like the more participants. We have a huge demographic. We service all of Albany County, all of Rensselaer County, and we just got to get those more young adults.
I'd like to see locally more of our people, African Americans, and people of minorities in employment, because there's building going on, and it's nice to see new buildings go up and all these things, but we need to have our folks on those jobs, making the salaries that they make, and also included in our police and fire, our policing and fire people, because those jobs are a pathway to middle income lifestyles. Folks look at some of them are jobs that, they could be dangerous, no question about it. But the two things that have to happen. One is, I believe, you have more of the folks that are minorities in those jobs. That's one. They have a job. When you have a job, you're less likely to be involved in crime, right? And that's why I'm saying employment in the construction that's going on, and in these other positions, as I say, police, fire, and fire in the Albany Capital Region. Now, why did I say that? We've been working, 100 Black Men, we've been working with the police and fire with Albany, Schenectady, and Troy, and trying to get them to remove those barriers that we talked about, so you get to more minorities in those positions. Having those more minorities in those positions and having people from the community involved, that's good, as opposed to having folks come from the outside of your community and police them. That doesn't work. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I seen the change. I was in the 50s. I had seen the change when police and fire and teachers and those people were required to live in the city of New York, and it was great.
But that was before integration.
There you go. So then what happened is then unions and other people prevailed upon the politicians, and then they removed that, and folks moved out of New York City, and then the businesses and employment opportunities moved out. And then what are you going to have? When you have those things happen, we all know what's going to happen, your crime's going to go up. And then you're going to have people coming with a militaristic attitude, and they're going to police you? Come on. That's a formula for tragedies, and the tragedies we see every day. Look at what's going on in Albany, city of Albany, right? If those folks had jobs, they would be less likely to cause problems, right? So that's one of the things I like to see. But let me just touch on that. I said 100 Black Men were working with the police and fire organizations to see if we can help them change some of the things so we get more people in there. That's one thing, right? But on December the 4th, 2020, we hosted a policing reform conference. And we had, for the city, for the Albany County, just for Albany County. And we had good participation. And so we intend to follow up with our activities, meetings with them, et cetera, to find out what has changed, right? We got to get ahead of this. We don't wait till we have another George Floyd situation and then say, oh, now we're going to do something. No, we want to get ahead of this. So we're going to be dialoguing with those entities, mainly the police, and then and see if we can get some change and more diversity. And then, of course, we have to see changes. You have to see changes. You have in the city of Albany, I will say that we've met with the police chief and Eric Hawkins, and he's a member of our organization, and we see what he's trying to do, and we will help him personally, and we help the department also, right? So the other change I like to see the George Floyd bill passed. Next year, if we come back here, and I'm sitting out there with you, and somebody else is up here, I want to see successful be that the George Floyd bill was passed.
Thank you. Thank you again, Richard, Mike, Deborah. We appreciate your time, and thank you all for joining us for this very important discussion.